Oi! What's going on, everybody? Surprise! I am here for a surprise late night balls deep breakdown for you guys. We are going to do the Vince Pichel Austin Hubbard fight tonight. It's one I've been looking into. I just wanted to kind of get it out of the way tonight. It's not the most compelling fight on the card, but there are some interesting stats that I'd love to get into with you guys. So it looks like Smooth Jimmy's all ready here. I'm ready. So let's do it, man. Let's get into the stats here. Let's start like we always do with the tail of the tape here. And right away, we see one of the most compelling stats of the entire goddamn fight. Vince Pichel, 38 years old as a lightweight. Austin Hubbard, 29. So Austin Hubbard at a much different career trajectory at this point than Pichel is. These guys got the same height. Pichel's got a 1-inch reach advantage. Both of these guys orthodox fighters. We see that Vince Pichel, according to Tapology, according to Sherdog, he's fighting at Big John McCarthy's training center. And we got Austin Hubbard fighting out of the Elevation Fight Team with some real studs up there. Neil Magny, Drew Dober, Curtis Blades, the list goes on. A very good team up there. They train at Elevation, hence the name Elevation Fight Team. Dude's got fantastic conditioning as a result of training up there at Elevation. But Vince Pichel's conditioning is no joke. And he has went the distance in pretty much all of his UFC fights where he's won them. And the guy's conditioning never gives out. He gets better. He gets better as the fight goes on. So we can say that Pichel's got really good conditioning, and he won't be at a massive conditioning disadvantage against a guy like Hubbard, who is known for his conditioning. If we get into the pro experience here, we will see that Austin Hubbard, despite the fact that he is 9 years younger than Vince Pichel, has got actually 3 more professional fights. This is crazy. This is something that we don't often see. It's not a statistic that I often talk about, but it's an important one because it tells us how ready a fighter is going to be on any given day. Austin Hubbard has had 18 professional fights in 6 years, 3 fights per year. Vince Pichel has had 15 professional fights in 12 years. So that's like 1.25 fights per year. So Hubbard has been by far the way more active fighter as a pro. And he's actually had twice as much cage time as Vince Pichel. So even though Austin Hubbard is 9 years younger here, we do see a very compelling experience advantage here for him, despite the fact, and busyness advantage here, despite the fact that Pichel's been in the game about 6 years longer than Hubbard. And then if we look at the UFC experience, we see Pichel with a 2-fight edge. He's got 8. Hubbard's got 6. A 6-2 record for Vince Pichel, while only 3-3 for Austin Hubbard. A little more cage time for Pichel, and both of these guys got average fight times a little over 11 minutes. If we look at the finish stats here, we see Hubbard not much of a finisher here. He has finished one of his 3 wins by knockout, and overall his finish rate is about 53%. So in his 13 wins, we're going to say that is 7 wins by finish, 2 by sub, 5 by knockout. While for Pichel, we got 13 career wins, 62% by knockout. So that would be, I think, 8 out of 13 wins, all of them by knockout, 5 of them by decision. And only 1 of his 6 UFC wins has come inside the distance. So Pichel, Hubbard, both of these guys, if we combine their 9 UFC wins, we've only got 2 of them coming inside the distance. So neither one of these guys are prolific finishers. In terms of whether they get finished or not, Austin Hubbard has been finished in 2 out of his 5 professional losses, all by submission. So he's never been knocked out. He's been subbed twice, and he's lost by decision 3 times. While for Vince Pichel, in only 2 professional losses, both of them had been inside the distance. One to Gregor Gillespie, one to Rustam Habibov. So both of his losses have come to fantastic wrestlers, really top-notch wrestlers. So both of his losses coming inside the distance. Hubbard, 2 of his 5 losses coming inside the distance. 7 combined losses, 4 of them inside the distance. So, I don't see either one of these guys being a big UFC style finisher. And Pichel has really only lost to ridiculously good wrestlers. So this is a fight that I do see going the distance. Before we get into the striking stats here, let's see what you guys have to say in the chat, because I kind of dropped you guys on this one last minute. I just wanted to kind of get this one knocked out. This isn't one I wanted to spend a whole hour on, but I thought it was an important fight, and I thought there were some compelling statistics. So I wanted to get into it with you guys here. And we got my guy, Chris, in the room here. What's going on, Chris? Good to see you here with the Balls Deep breakdown with your Uncle Weezy, saying he's been an MIA, life is busy, but anytime Uncle Weezy is streaming and I'm free, I'm in. Dude, thanks for stopping by, man. I really appreciate it. Always good to see you in here. My guy Monk is in the room hanging out with us late night. Let's go, Unc. I need some positivity after all the hate on my Madsen bet. They love Guida. Dude, I love Guida. I love him too, but we've got to kind of look, we've got to bet what we think is going to happen, and different people see a different path to victory for different guys. And there's a bunch of different ways that fights can play out. I do believe that this fight is going to play out in the wrestling realm, where I believe that Madsen will be a little bit better. I'm with you on this one, Monk. But the guys that like Guida, I think they're making a great point too, man. Guy's way more experienced. He's going to be the way better striker. He trains with great wrestlers over there at Alpha Male. He's got great MMA wrestling and a great gas tank against an opponent in Madsen who's been known to gas late in MMA fights. So there's a lot of valid reasons to be on Guida as well. So we got to respect those guys. Whoever cashes the bets will have the bragging rights for the short term, but I'm on Madsen. I think that his wrestling is next level, and we'll see how Guida deals with it. But I'm a big fan of Clay Guida. If he wins, I'll be disappointed I lost my money, but I won't be disappointed that Madsen lost to a guy like Guida, because he is a G. He's a stud, one of the pioneers of the game that we love so much. And we got Chris saying, glad someone else calls him Monk. I have been since we started, but it felt weird. No idea about this fight, Monk is saying. Pass for maybe fight goes to decision. Dude, the fight goes to decision seems like it's pretty juiced. I saw it on my book. The over 2.5 is something like minus 290. I believe this fight goes over. I believe it goes to decision, but it's so juiced it might be better suited as a parlay piece. And then Dan Goldstein. Well, look what we have here. Uncle Weezy sneaking one in late. I did kind of sneak this one in, Dan. I admit it. But, we're here. We're talking about it. We're going to get into all the stats for you guys. Hubbard, Pichel, Madsen, Guida. I already did the main event breakdown on my man DFS by the Numbers channel. So, we're gone balls deep into this. Will be the third fight of the week. And guess what, you guys? We're going to be debuting Just the Tip with your Uncle Weezy tomorrow night. So it's a big week here. I'm going to be doing a lot of content this week. That is the plan going forward, to be doing a lot of content for you guys every week. So I'm just going to jump into the pool and neck deep. And we've also got the new DraftKings show is going to be on Pub Sports Radio tomorrow night, 6 o'clock Central Time, with 3 studs besides myself. Can't wait to do that one for the second week now. Really looking forward to that as well. So lots of content coming your way. I'm going to keep real busy for you guys. Chris is saying, Eileen Hubbard, but laying off. Yeah, I don't blame you for laying off this fight. We got Monk saying, what's up to Dan? And I agree, Chris. We got Chris saying, Dan. Dan saying, what up, Monk? Got victimized in all the betting over Madsen. Yeah, don't worry about that, man. The only thing you need to worry about, Monk, is whether that bet cashes or not. Don't worry about what people think before the bet cashes. Once the money's down, it's pointless to worry about it. You've done the research already. You've got your reasons for picking Madsen. I've got my reasons for picking Madsen. If we're wrong, we move on to the next one, man. And we got, Monk saying, I'm surprised so many on Guido. Well, I'm not surprised. I mean, the guy is very recognizable. He's a veteran, and there's a lot of reasons, legitimately, even in the numbers, to like him here. It's just that some of those numbers, when you dive a little bit deeper, when Clay Guida gets tested by a good offensive wrestler, we haven't seen him at his best when he's been put in those types of fights yet. So that's why I'm on Madsen here. And we got Dan Goldstein saying, me too. I'm feeling kind of sharper than I should now for the Madsen bet. I'll be pissed if the line gets better and I've already pulled it. It's all right, man. You know, as long as we cash it, that's what's the most important here. We can't predict how the rest of the public is going to see these things. We got my guy Chris Colanzis in the room. What up, nephew? Surprise, surprise. Late night Weezy. Yes, sir. Grinding late night for you guys here so I can get an extra balls deep breakdown in this week. Got a big plans for tomorrow for the other two shows, so I'll be very busy tomorrow. So I wanted to sneak this one in late night so that I could get the balls deep breakdowns for you guys early in the week. And my guy DFS by the numbers, he knows all about the balls deep. He's right here with us. We're going to break this one down. And Monk saying, thanks for doing this fight, super close fight. It is. So we got to kind of look and see into these guys past, see how everything goes here, man. Dedication and love, like all of us degenerates after midnight. Brady in the house. And Dan saying, what's up to Brady? For sure, no hate, fun competition. Sup, guys? Let's see, dude. Yeah, everybody just saying what's up, dude. We got Hammer and Hog in the room, man. Bro, what's good? It's good to see you, man. I'm glad you hit that 4-leg parlay that I threw out a couple weeks ago. Maybe we can find something like that tonight too. We'll see, man. But if we get into the striking stats here, this is going to be interesting because this is where a lot of people think that Austin Hubbard is going to have the advantage. And if we look at the numbers, both of these guys have nice little striking ratios. Both of these guys have pretty decent accuracy, especially Hubbard, and the defense is a little bit better on Hubbard too. So we see that Vinc Pichel is landing 3.2 significant strikes per minute out of almost 7 offered, and he's only absorbing 2.28 out of only 5.29 against. 57% striking defense, about 46% striking offense. Not showing a ton of power, about 3.5% knockdowns per total significant strikes landed, about 0.17 knockdowns per 15 minutes. Austin Hubbard has not clocked a knockdown in 6 UFC fights. Neither one of these guys has been knocked down, though. And if we look at Hubbard, we're seeing that he's landed 3.66 out of 7.22, a little bit more accurate, and he's only absorbing 2.61 out of 6.39. So Hubbard is throwing more than his opponents. He's landing more than his opponents. The significant strike difference is about 1.05, which is excellent. While for Pichel, it's about 0.92. So even better than Pichel's really good 0.92 significant strike difference is Hubbard's. And we see Hubbard about 2 points ahead in the striking defense, about 4 points ahead in the striking accuracy. So it just looks like on the aggregate, over the fights that these guys have already had in the UFC, and they are a similar amount, 14 total fights here we got in the sample size, that, Austin Hubbard's striking metrics shaping up a little bit better here. And then if we look at the grappling statistics, this is where we're going to see some interesting stuff here. We see 38 takedown attempts here for Vinc Pichel in 8 fights. He is 6-2 in the UFC. So we're looking at 16, 24, 32, about almost 5 takedown attempts per fight. He's gotten well over half of them at 60.53%. He's averaging 3.83 takedowns per 15 minutes, about a third of a submission attempt per 15 minutes, and 36.55% control time. And he's only allowing 20% control time, so he's almost doubling the control time that his opponents get. And remember, he's fought guys like Khabibov and Gregor Gillespie. So if you throw out those fights, he would be even better. but the takedown defense has been awful. His takedown defense is 20%. That's about as bad as it gets, especially for somebody in a sample size like Pichel. Over 8 fights to have only 20% takedown defense is absolutely terrible. He's getting taken down 2.67 times per 15 minutes. He's having about 1 submission attempt against per 15 minutes. And like I said, 20% control time. Austin Hubbard is a much more economical wrestler here. He's only attempting 1 takedown attempt per fight. He's getting about 2/3 of them, averaging 0.81 takedowns per 15 minutes, 0 submission attempts, and about 18% control time. While on the defensive end, Austin Hubbard's takedown defense is not good either, but it's much better than Vinc Pichel's has been thus far, as Hubbard is about 58.82%. He has successfully defended 20 of 34 takedown attempts against. He's about 0.41 submission attempts against per 15 minutes, and he's getting out-controlled by his opponents by about 6%. As he controls his opponents about 18% of the time, he gets controlled about 25% of the time. So, Vinc Pichel is going to be the guy that we're going to see that's going to be much more likely to go to the wrestling here. So let's kind of dig into these stats a little bit deeper, shall we? Let's go into the advanced stats here. And let's see, we've got, this is the Pichel numbers here. We see his opponents: Miller, Roosevelt Roberts, Gregor Gillespie, Joakim Silva, Damian Brown, Enja Kawani, Garrett Whiteley, Rustam Habibov. And we see some of these great takedown numbers. When he's fighting strikers, we see that he's getting 8 takedowns here out of 12, 8 takedowns out of 11, 1 out of 4, 3 out of 6, and 3 out of 5. So he's only went for takedowns in 5 out of his 8 fights. But when he does, he gets 23 out of 38. And if we look at the control time here, we see that when he loses fights, he gets out-controlled. So he had 2 seconds of control time against Rustam Habibov, but gave up 96. Against Gregor Gillespie, he had 0 seconds of control time, but gave up 471. And then if we look at the rest of the fights, all the wins, he out-controlled Jim Miller, 394 to 310. He out-controlled Roosevelt Roberts, 361 to 155. That was a win. Out-controlled Joakim Silva, 49 to nothing. That was a win. Out-controlled Damian Beatdown Brown, 2 to nothing. And he out-controlled Anthony Njokuani, 512 to 6. And then Garrett Whiteley, 653 to 40. So when Pichel is at his best, he's out-controlling his opponents. He's using wrestling. In these fights, we can just see how active he is with his wrestling. I have highlighted all the winning fights here for Pichel. And that's 3 out of 5 takedowns, 3 out of 6 takedowns, 1 out of 4. There's only 1 fight where he was successful without getting any takedown attempts. And it was a fight that he won in the first round by knockout, by getting a knockdown, his only UFC knockdown. So when he has success, 5 out of the 6 wins have come as a result of him being an active wrestler. 1 out of 4 here, 8 out of 11, 8 out of 12, 3 out of 6, and 3 out of 5 on the takedown attempts. And then he's getting advances too. 8 advances of position, 8 advances, 6 advances, 6 advances. And he is actively grappling against guys with really good ground games in Jim Miller, Roosevelt Roberts here. And we see that when he's losing fights, look at what Gregor Gillespie and Rustam Habibov did to him in the wrestling. 7 of 9 takedown attempts and 7 advances for Gregor Gillespie against him, and 5 of 6 takedowns with 1 advance for Rustam Habibov. Rustam Habibov knocked him out with a suplex. It was vicious. That's how he has lost in the UFC. Well, if we look at Austin Hubbard, and let's just also point out here, before we get into the strength schedule stats, we don't have to jump back here. The combined records of the guys that Pichel has lost to are 17-4 in the UFC. That's a 7-1 Gregor Gillespie and a 10-3 Rustam Habilov. And then if you look at the records of the guys that he's beaten, they're about 500. He's gotten really good wins in his last 2 fights against Jim Miller and Roosevelt Roberts, 2 guys with winning records. But then before that, Joaquim Neto beat J.J. Silva, Damian Beatdown Brown, Anthony Njokuani, Garrett Whiteley. None of those wins are really going to knock your socks off. But the wins against Roberts and Miller are solid wins against veterans, guys that have, not Roberts so much compared to Miller, but definitely guys with a combined 26-13 record in the UFC, 2 wins for every loss, 39 fights between them. So experienced opponents and really good grapplers, both of them. So he can definitely get himself out of situations on the ground and dominate his opponent there. Well, if we look at what Austin Hubbard is doing here, we see 3 wins and 3 losses. The 3 losses are to really good opponents. Davey Ramos, 4 wins, 3 losses. Mark Madsen, who we'll be seeing in this card, 2-0. And then Joe Solecki, a fantastic grappler in his own right, 4-0. So if we look at the guys that are beating Hubbard, 3 guys with a combined record of 10-3. That's very impressive as well. So it's not like Hubbard is losing to any slouches. However, it's when we look at the wins that we see the problem here. Kyle Prepolek, 0-2 in the UFC. Max Roskopf, 0-1 in the UFC. And Dakota Bush, 0-1 in the UFC. Basically, he beats guys who don't have a UFC win, debuting fighters, guys that are green, guys that really we may not know if any of these guys are UFC level yet. But Austin Hubbard is beating those kind of guys. We don't know what he's going to do against a median opponent, but the problem is that Vinc Pichel is not a median opponent. Vinc Pichel is a guy who has racked up a 6-2 record in the UFC. In my opinion, one of Hubbard's greatest strengths is that he does have great conditioning. But Pichel has shown really good conditioning in his own right in the UFC. So I don't necessarily see that being a huge advantage here. And if we look at Joe Solecki, Mark Madsen, and Davey Ramos, and we look at the control time situations in these fights that he's lost, we see that he's outcontrolled 157-0 by Solecki, outcontrolled 481 seconds to nothing by Madsen, and outcontrolled 246-50 by Davey Ramos. And if we look at the takedown attempts against, Solecki did not get one, but he got his back. 8-12 for Mark Madsen. So Mark Madsen was just absolutely relentless with the takedown attempts. And then 3 of 7. So in those losing efforts, his opponents were 11 of 21 on takedown attempts against, over 50% accuracy. So it's pretty easy to see that, if Austin Hubbard is going to have success, he's going to have to stop takedown attempts. He's going to have to keep the fight standing. And when he does that, these fights that he won, we see 1 out of 6 his opponents were on their takedowns, 2 out of 6 and 0 out of 1. So 3 of 13. So we see that now when his takedown attempts, or when his takedown defense is over 75%, like it was in these 3 fights, that he has a great chance to win, and he's 3-0 in those fights. So I'm seeing a path to victory here, obviously, in these statistics for Vinc Pichel via the wrestling. If this fight stays standing, Pichel's also got a little bit of power. He's got a UFC knockdown. He's got a win by knockout, just like Hubbard does over Roskopf. So, and he's been tested by some better strikers as well. Some guys like Njokuani, some guys like Kyle Prepolek, or I'm not Prepolek, that was Hubbard. Who am I thinking of here? Joaquim Silva is a pretty good striker. Roosevelt Roberts, really long, straight strikes. So yeah, he's been tested by better strikers than Hubbard has, but not much better. So if this fight stays, on the feet, I think it's going to be close. But if Pichel does work in his wrestling, I think that that's going to be a big way for him to take control of this fight, keep control of this fight, keep Austin Hubbard where he's not going to be very comfortable. One of the problems that I do see is that Austin Hubbard has been a slow starter, but so is Vinc Pichel. Pichel does get better as the fight goes on, but if he doesn't get off to a fast start in this fight, he doesn't want to give up an early round to a guy like Hubbard, who's going to be very tough in the third round, who's going to be very fresh, always in great condition. He put it on Mark Madsen in the third round after being dominated in the wrestling for 2 straight rounds by Madsen, after carrying his weight for 2 straight rounds. So we do know that Austin Hubbard is going to have fantastic conditioning. It's going to be very important for Vinc Pichel to get off to a faster start than we've seen him get off to in his last 2 fights against Miller and Roberts here. So I'm interested to see what you guys are seeing in the chat here, which way you guys are leaning. And let's see, where did I leave off? Let's see. Wow. Yeah, just the hip. Yeah, and Pichel, yes, somebody's bringing up the hip surgery that Pichel had. I know it's a little bit further than, let's see. We've got Hammering Hog. Gon Lewis fight ends. Hill Torres fight goes to decision. Munoz and Menafield, you are a god. I'm glad that parlay hit, man. I got that one off the top of my head. I should have played it myself, man. Pichel is a tad old. He's probably more skilled, but we have a young stud versus an aging line, and you're absolutely correct. That 9-year age advantage is probably, in my opinion, the biggest stumbling point keeping me from making a bet on Pichel here. But we talked about how active Hubbard is, and that's a very big advantage. 3 fights per year in Hubbard's UFC career, in his pro career, and only 1.25 fights per year for Pichel. He's had a bunch of injuries that he's had to fight back from. He had hip surgery, he had a torn labrum in his hip prior to the Jim Miller fight. And he said that he was, hoping that it would hold up, and it did. So that's a good sign that it held up. But you're right. He's 9 years older. And that's never a good thing. You don't ever want to bet on somebody that's 9 years older when they're 38 and the opponent is 29, and Hubbard is making improvements because he's still young. So that's the biggest thing keeping me here from a bet on Pichel here, is the fact that he's older, the fact that he has had a number of injuries. But on the other side of that, most 38-year-olds like Pichel are going to have a ton of tread on the tires. Pichel doesn't have that. And every time he's in the cage, we see him as a guy who will fight for your money as long as he's not absolutely getting dominated in the wrestling realm. And Austin Hubbard is a solid wrestler, but he's not going to be dominating Pichel in that way. So I think that this is a good opponent for Pichel here. I do like him to win, but we've got to be very aware of the fact that Hubbard has great conditioning, that he's much younger, and that he's the one that's probably going to be making improvements at this point of his career, while we're probably seeing the finished version of Vinc Pichel here. We got Dan Goldstein saying, I'm not betting this fight, but if I was, it breaks down pretty simply. Bet the guy who's not had hip surgery. If you're old enough for a new hip, Hubbard might feed you the tip. Oh, Dan, you are, my friend, an absolute treasure to the MMA online community, and I salute you for that beautiful piece of prose right there. I love doing this. I love my job. And Monk saying just the hip. You guys. Hubbard get-up game is good, and it is. He got up several times against Mark Madsen. He got up against Davey Ramos. He got up against, what's his name? The kid who quit, Max Roskopf. He's fought so many good wrestlers. And then Joe Selecki got on his back, and that was one backpack that he could not get rid of. And Chris saying, I swear the MMA degenerates all have the same great type sense of humor. I couldn't agree more. Have to have one in this game. Yeah, that's why I won't bet it. I hate betting against wrestlers, but I want Hubbard to win and barely lean him. I like Hubbard. I'm a fan of his, man. I root for that dude. It's just he's had some fucking tough matchups, man. Selecki, Madsen, Davy Ramos, those are some hellacious grapplers, and now they're feeding him Pichel. A guy who's gotten 8 takedowns in a fight twice. He's gotten 3 takedowns in a fight, at least 3 takedowns in a fight 4 different times. All of those fights wins. So, that Pichel's going to want to go to that wrestling if he feels like he's going to win 2 of these rounds, and he can win minutes with his wrestling. I know he's not a wrestler, but I should say grappler, really, right? This is my closest fight prediction on the card, minus 102, plus 102. Yeah, dude. It's really hard because you simply can never ignore the statistical significance of a 9-year age difference. And we're not talking about a 30-year-old versus a 21-year-old, where the older guy is in a career trajectory where he's really peaking, while the 21-year-old is a guy that's brand new to the sport. He's young, he can recover quickly, but he's got a lot to learn still. This is a 38-year-old against a 29-year-old, and this 29-year-old has 6 UFC fights, and he trains with killers, and he's fought killers. So yeah, man, this is a very difficult fight to figure out. Like I say, I like to lean the wrestler, just like Chris said earlier too. And I do think that Pichel's the better wrestler. I think he's beaten the better brand of competition than Austin Hubbard has. I don't want to say he's fought the better brand of competition, because Austin Hubbard has fought killers, but the killers that he's fought, he's lost to. At least Hubbard's opponent has beaten guys like Jim Miller and Roosevelt Roberts, and went into those guys' strongest area and really done well there against them. And then Goldstein saying, if I didn't have jokes with this judging, it would be razor blades and lemon juice for me, man. Yeah, dude. And that's the hardest part about, because betting MMA is hard, but having a bet, a winning bet taken out of your hand by a judge, it's just the next level of getting served, and nobody needs that, man. The degenerate community is solid as fuck, and I agree. You guys are all solid. Dan, birds of a feather, haha, absolutely. And let's see, we got Monk throwing some sweet stats our way here. 53.9 seconds get up time for Pichel, and 32.06 seconds for Hubbard. Yeah, so it takes Hubbard longer to get up. And Pichel, when he's been taken down, and it's been a lot, 16 out of 20 times. Yeah, let's look at those defensive numbers, because remember, we said that Pichel has awful takedown defense. So let's just take a look at that. I'm sure it was mostly the Gillespie. Yeah. So if it's the 7 of 9 here in the Gillespie fight and the 5 of 6 here in the Habalov fight, so that's 12 of 15. So outside of that, he still has given up 4 out of 5. So yeah, he always sucks. If you try to take down Vinc Pichel, you're gonna get him down. And then 12 advances off of 16 takedowns too. So Vinc Pichel, very easy to take down. Hubbard, as a way to steal around here and maybe steal a decision in this fight, I would like to see him go to the offensive wrestling here, because Vinc Pichel is not particularly great off his back. He gets up easily. You're not going to submit him, but you could win rounds if you do choose to go to the offensive wrestling before your opponent does. That's a little advice from your Uncle Weezy for Austin Hubbard out there. And those are some great numbers, Monk. Thanks for bringing those into the room. I appreciate that. Monk, do you think with that and the Scrabble time that a sub is in play? Yeah, and I don't think it is. I don't think it is for either of these guys personally, but and then we've got Chris saying, yeah, this is one that is stylistically hard to bet. It seems too close. Yeah, dude, I don't know if I'm going to be able to get to a bet on this one either. Pichel has attempted 2 subs in the UFC, Hubbard 0. I would lean towards no sub, but hey, I'm just the guy that max bet Madsen. I'm right there with you, Monk. you're in a very safe space when you're in your Uncle Weezy's room here, because you're here with other MMA degenerates. We don't judge each other by the bets that we choose. We just root for each other, try to hope that we cash these tickets. It's us against the bookies, man. Let's hope that we come out on top. I'm rooting for you. You got 5 on, I don't know if a max bet for you is 5 units. I got 2.5 on Madsen, and I'm looking for some inside the distance money as well, because I think Madsen's a killer. Chris saying maybe better for DK or FanDuel than to straight bet. Otherwise, gun to my head, I bet Pichel just due to the grappling. But I want to see Hubbard outstrike him. I think Hubbard will outstrike him on the feet if it stays there. But Hubbard's going to really need to be active. He's going to need to move a lot. He's going to need to move his feet. But he's got the conditioning to kind of keep up that kind of game plan for 15 minutes. But Pichel is not a quitter. Pichel does get better as the fight goes on, and I believe that Hubbard does as well. So I do think that while this is a tough fight to pick, we can say one thing. We've talked about how we don't really see a submission here. We don't see either one of these guys finishing their opponents via KO. Vinc Pichel has 1 knockout. We have Hubbard got a knockout, but it was really more of a guy just quitting on the stool. So in 9 combined wins for these 2 guys, only 2 of them have come inside the distance. So one of the ways that I'm looking at this is, if you are coming down on one side here, bet them by decision. You'll get a little bit of extra value there. Instead of being right around that pick'em price, you might get something closer to plus 200. Then you might want to throw your hat in the ring. You might want to try to bet this fight a little more, with a little more juice, a little more reason to maybe throw your money into that pot there if you're getting plus 200, because I do see this fight going to decision, and with an over 2.5 sitting around minus 290 right now, that is telling you that you can get that extra value by betting either one of these guys, whichever one you think is going to win the fight. Bet them to win by decision. And Monk's saying, I bet the winner does well in DraftKings. Lots of potential grappling points to be had, lots of reverses, lots of mat returns. And these guys do land some strikes too. Both of them have good conditioning. So in those grappling exchanges, we could see a lot of points pile up quickly. Excellent point there by Monk. And DK Vinc all day. I like Vinc, dude. He gets a lot of takedowns. And then we got Dan saying, well, I'll have to just believe you on principle now, as I'm a bum who bet Madsen too. And then Chris saying, agree, Weezy Hubbard has his will. Weezy Hubbard, his will has my respect. That's why I want to see that win for Hubbard. Dude, he's got my respect too. That Madsen fight was an all-timer. It was a great fight. We saw Madsen's toughness in that fight. We saw Hubbard's the fact that there's no quit in Hubbard either. And I think we're going to see a very similar styled fight here. Pichel is a good wrestler, but he's not nearly as dominant of an offensive wrestler as Madsen is. So I could see this being back and forth. I could see it standing up a lot longer than the Madsen-Hubbard fight did. And let's see here. We got Monk saying, DraftKings, for this fight, I have Pichel 83.33 points in a decision win, over 100 in a finish. Hubbard at 81.45 in a decision, higher than Pichel by finish. Okay, that makes sense. And we got Z saying Dan is the man, and I agree with you, Z. Dan is the man, one of the best parts of the MMA community that we have here on YouTube amongst all the cappers. Dan is one of the best people in these rooms, and he's always out here supporting us. Much love. Much love to you too, Z. Love what you're doing over there. I made Weezy need a drink. I die happy. And we got Z in the hacienda. We got my man MMA Lock of the Night. Was just watching you with Clint on the Die Hard MMA podcast. As always, fantastic work, fantastic capping. Wow, I feel honored that you're in here hanging out with us, Lock. It's always good to see you, man. I'm a big fan of your work. I hope you keep doing exactly what you're doing, providing fantastic content for people like me and the rest of the people in this room. Thanks for hanging out, man. And I love to get balls deep with you guys, because, sometimes when we're putting our hard-earned money on these fights, we got to take all the angles into consideration. And the only way to do that is to go balls deep. And we got Slot Fever in here saying, I just looked at Vince picture. He looks tough. His ears look all chewed up. Dude, he's very tough. And so is Austin Hubbard. No quit, neither of these guys. Genuinely tough dudes. This is going to be a great fight. And that's why it's so hard to call. And we got my guy Asphalt here in the room. Late night balls deep. Let's go, baby. Thanks for hanging out with us, Asphalt. Always good to see you in here with us. Now, Manpreet's here. I for sure have the third best beard now, if that put in my place. And we got Locke saying, I'm working on getting my beard back into pristine shape. It's already better than pretty much everybody's. Locke. You are in business with that beard. And Christ, what the hell, man? We got a lot of people here in the chat. This is fantastic. And we got 5. Yep. We got Locke is on Guida. Yes, Locke and Clint were talking about how they were on Guida tonight. And Dan saying, yo, I said it earlier, that beard is almost at a Magomedov ×2 level, brother. That is a high compliment, because anybody with the name Magomedov usually has a baller ass beard. And we got Monk saying, I think he and Clint were leaning that way. Yes, they were. They both brought up some great points. And like I said, we did the balls deep breakdown about Guida. Monk, myself, Dan Goldstein, we're all on Madsen. But you know what? The points with Guida, they still are very, very valid. The guy's way more experienced. His striking is way better. His conditioning is way better. And we can't just assume that Madsen is going to dominate somebody like Guida in the massive sample size that we have seen out there for Clay Guida. He's outcontrolled his opponents 4-1. But what I looked at when I went balls deep into the stats was when Guida gets tested, when his defensive wrestling gets tested, that's when we see Clay Guida not winning fights. Clay Guida needs to be the bully in order for us to be betting on him. I don't see him being the bully against Madsen. I think you're counting on Madsen absolutely gassing out. But the problem with that is that Madsen's super tough. So I don't see him quitting at any point here. He toughed out a very close third round with Austin Hubbard, even though Hubbard was really putting it on him. But he still managed to find a way to get 2 takedowns in that round and land some decent shots of his own. And he did it all with a broken jaw and exhausted. So I can't wait for that fight, man. That Guida Madsen fight is such a great co-main event. I see why people are on both sides, and I see why both sides are passionate about the side that they're picking. Can't wait to see that fight. That's what this community lives on, is awesome fights with studs like Clay Guida and Mark Madsen. Can't wait for that one. And then we got Goldstein. Yep, this is a split room, about 50-50 Guida to Madsen. Yep, that's right. We got Asphalt saying, in these cases, I like the wrestler more. Thinking goes the distance might be the safest. Yeah, this going the distance is a very safe bet in my opinion, and I might be throwing that one in a parlay, because that's one of those 4-leg Hail Mary parlays like I gave Hammering Hog, that, you know, this fight going over 2.5. I think even over 2.5, you would probably much rather go the over 2.5 than the decision, because of how great Guida's conditioning is and how we have seen Madsen, tire out at the end of fights. Like most Olympic wrestlers, they don't go much longer than 8 or 9 minutes because they wrestle balls out the entire time. So yeah, I think if you're on the Madsen side, you can also hedge with that Guida third round prop. And let's see, we got yes, top notch, always stuff from Dan Goldstein, and Dan saying Lock of the Night gets extra credit numerically because of the beard, hence 50-50. And Lock in the house, damn right, man. We got Monk saying it's Madsen to Guida ratio in this house, not Guida to Madsen. And let's see, man. Yeah, and the camp switch to fight ready definitely is a big deal here for Madsen. You know, there's a lot of reasons to like him, but you know what? We don't mind the juice lines for parlays. That's what we've got the parlays for, so that we can maybe juice up a couple of those, take a couple of those juice lines, get them to something around even money, and then throw a unit on it. And we got Headley One saying, Uncle Weezy, we need a premature climax segment to beat line movement like 2 weeks out. I missed the line on Mario Batista Canetti. Maybe D-Rod Kevin Lee will move towards Pick'em with Lee at -140. Yeah, that's a good question, man. I don't know which way the public's going to be on D-Rod Kevin Lee, but I'm guessing that Batista Canetti is moving heavily in the favor of Batista because when you look at Canetti's record, he's kind of a bum. So I could see that you might have missed that line movement. I have no idea where the line is. I have no idea which way it's moving, but I just know that Guido Canetti is not somebody you throw your hard-earned money on ever. So yeah, I'm guessing, but that line movement is definitely going in the favor of Mario Batista there. And then Locke's asking me, which other matchups are you looking to do breakdowns for this week, brother? Yeah, that's a good question, man. I'm open to suggestions here. I would like to do at least one more. Some of the ones that I could do Pantoja Royval. That would be an interesting one to go over. Kelleher Pillardi could be really good. I think Knight Charant is really low level. I'm not interested in that one. Sherman Porter could be an interesting one to do. Saldana Lingo. So I'm not going to do Maleki Nunez. I'm not even going to do Roberts Bahamondes because as much as a fan of I am of Roosevelt Roberts, I don't want to do that fight. So if you guys have any preferences, please let me know. But the ones that I would be interested in looking into would be Saldana Lingo, Kelleher Pillardi, or Pantoja Royval. So you guys let me know in the chat if you have one in particular that you would like me to see one more Balls Deep breakdown on this week. And we got Dan saying just the tip and premature climax. It all fits so good. I love it, dude. I might have to use the premature climax here because we are talking about just the tip being a sensual prelude to the full Balls Deep breakdown. We're going to be debuting just the tip tomorrow night. I'm really fired up about that one. We got Chris saying, oh my God, first Balls Deep, now just the tip, and then the premature climax segment. These things, Chris, man, they write themselves, don't they? I mean, we can't really do much better when we get ourselves into that niche. All the rest of it just comes naturally. We just got to wait to get our first sponsor for the ass shaving of the week segment. And you know that's coming soon, baby. You know, you don't want to be the mark on that, explaining that shit to your boss 6 months down the road, how you didn't figure out that, you know, Uncle Weezy's Just the Tip show would be great to advertise on when he finishes it every week with the ass shaving of the week segment. That Remington marketing guy is going to get his fucking ass fired by his boss if he isn't in that office next week with that kind of a suggestion. And that goes for Dollar Shave Club. That goes for the folks at Manscaped. Which one of you guys is getting on this train first, man? Because it's going to leave the station without you guys if you aren't proactive. So that's just your little warning there from Uncle Weezy. Oh man, I got to stop doing these things too late. I am just talking I'm like out of my ass right now, you guys. Chris saying that he feels Lingo is live, dude. Lingo is very live, dude. That guy is very live, especially in the first 2.5 minutes of a fight. He throws bombs, man. And if he connects, dude, you're going out. And Saldana's smooth, really good striker, and he's surprisingly well-rounded too. So I think that's going to be a really compelling fight. I know that Z did a video already on it. You should check it out on Z's MMA. I know that he is on the Saldana side in the Saldana Lingo fight, but he did a good little 8-minute breakdown on that one. That'd be a great little one if I don't do that one. Definitely check that one out on Z's channel, whether I do or not, though, because he made some great points about the Saldana Lingo fight. And we got Daz File saying Pantoja Royval would be cool. I think that would be an excellent one to do, man. That's high level. That is a really high level fight there. And we got Dan saying I'm keen on the Kelleher one for sure, but all sound good. And we got Chris saying kind of want to bet him, but I got to look into that a lot more. Yeah, me too, man. And Locke saying I'm close to laying the hammer on Kelleher myself. Would love to see your stats approach on that one. Yeah, dude. You know, Locke. In the description of this video, there is the link to this matchup template right here. So right here, I've got all the stats for Pillardi and Kelleher. And then if you go all the way over to the left on the bottom of this tab, you can get the advanced stats, which I have the career stats for and against for every fighter on the card. Please download it for free, courtesy of your Uncle Weezy. Check out the stats in there. Check out the stats on the matchup template. And if you see some things in there that help you lay down that hammer, I hope Kelleher wins, because I think Pilardi is not quite on the UFC level here, and I'm a big fan of Brian Kelleher. I'd love to see him win that fight, man. And the numbers, I think, are going to tell you that he probably will, but you can check it out for yourself, brother. The midweek show is The Shaft. I need another sip of my beverage. I got to do this with you guys late night more often, man. This is a treat. Gotta love the MMA degenerates. I'm right there with you, Chris. And then Headley One saying, I think if I bet money lines this week, I'll be lucky to break even. Hopefully I can find some violence or over-under spots to bet. Headley One, such an excellent point. I'm glad you brought that up, because I was talking about this with DFS by the numbers. He was saying that he's going to try to stay light this week because there's a lot of coin flip fights. And sometimes if you overinvest mentally into thinking that one of these guys has a huge edge, you can do that for the entire card. And what you're basically doing, if you get too many bets on too many fights, you're flipping a coin 6 times in a row. And sometimes you win 6, sometimes you lose all 6. But more times than not, you're probably going to win 2 and lose 4. And it's just going to be a bad day. So really do try to pick those spots. The over in this fight is a great spot. If you're leaning one way or another, we told you that you can take them by decision, because this fight probably goes to decision. So look for some ways to avoid the money lines, because a lot of them are coin flips, and then use those feelings that you have, those leans that you have from your tape study and from your research, in order to kind of try to hone in on some extra ways to find some value. That would be my advice for this week, because this is a tough week. We kind of want to keep our powder dry this week and kind of wait for some better spots and some higher level fights as a whole. But that's an excellent point, Headley One. Thanks for bringing that up, man. And then Dan saying, like I said, I'm the least smart dude here, but if you got to give me dick jokes. And Chris saying, still think Manscaped needs to pay Black Beast to do a commercial too, because my balls was hot. Yeah, dude, that would be a great. That's another absolute. That's a layup, It's a layup. These marketing guys, these things they should just fall into their laps, but you still got to pull the trigger, don't you? And I'm all in. And we got Z saying Z's got Saldana, more seasoned striker to his eye. Yeah, and he's pretty damn well rounded too, Z. A lot of submissions on his record too, for a guy who does show some really smooth distance striking. You're absolutely right about that. Yeah, and definitely do check out Z. Chris, he's got a great YouTube channel, and does a lot of great videos just breaking down a lot of the lower level fights, LFA, Bellator, PFL. I don't mean to call them lower level, but just, other organizations besides the UFC. I know Z does say that the lower level MMA is sometimes the best to break down, and where you get some of your strongest leans when those lines are more likely to be mispriced due to lack of information. So when you have information that the bookmakers don't necessarily have, that's a good place to find an edge. And Z is the king of finding edges on those kind of fights. And we got Z saying, I've got Kelleher there. Think there's a big level gap. And yeah, I'm thinking you're saying experience and skill there. And I tend to agree with you. Kelleher should finish, especially later in the fight. And Locke saying, sweet, I'll be checking it out, brother. Yeah, help yourself, Locke. Let me know if you have any questions. Just DM me on Twitter, and that goes for everybody else in here. If you ever need any questions, need any access to any statistical information, just shout me out on Twitter at MMA Weezy. I'm always happy to talk fights with you guys and help you guys out with any free stats. And we got Monk saying, double nerd stat show. We can call it Pillow Talk with Uncle and Munkle. I like it, dude. We should do something together, Monk. I don't know if we could do it every week, but I would love to get together and talk stats with you anytime, man. The more the merrier, like Z says, and then we can team up and show everybody what like some serious fucking databases look like, man. We got Dan saying got him again. We got Monk saying shit is really too late at night. Yeah, it is, man. It's 12:30 a.m. here. It's 1:30 a.m. over on the West Coast, man. But you know what? We're grinders. We're degenerates, dude. This is what we do, man. We got to put in this work. We got to beat these bookies because they put in a lot of work to beat us, man. So we got to do our part. We got to, if we expect to beat these guys in the long run, man, we got to put in the work. And let's see. Uncle and Munkle. It's fucking hilarious. Yeah, thanks everybody for hanging out. I appreciate you guys spending your late nights with your Uncle Weezy here. I humbly request that the family heritage smoking code for Just a Tip. Yeah, it's right here on the chair, actually. It will be busted out tomorrow night for Just a Tip. Just a Tip, like I said, a sensual prelude. Well, what could be more sensual clothing than the old smoking coat? A classic piece of haberdashery right here. So yeah, that will be making an appearance tomorrow night for sure. And we got Headley One saying next week has some good spots. I agree with you, Headley One. I've already looked ahead to it, and there are some spots that are kind of jumping out pre-tape. I got to do a little more research, but I like next week better than this week. I think Uncle Weezy Stats will find an edge on Barboza Chikadze, D-Rod Kevin Lee, and D-Rod Kevin Lee. I can't wait for that. Jacoby Stewart, and then Emers Sabatini. All great fights. Can't wait to break those down. And Z saying, I'm really honing in on the lower level. There are some opportunities down there that I'm realizing are pretty insane, and that's fantastic. Keep doing it, because I'm going to be tailing you on some of those bets, Z, because every time I watch one of your videos talking about the bets that you're making on some of these fights, you are really bringing up some great points, using some great logic in order to kind of strip out the statistically significant bets. And I think it's fantastic what you're doing, brother. We got Dan saying, I prefer the lower level bets, get most of my action done early. Absolutely. Less information to comb through, smaller sample sizes, but sometimes, you find those gems, those fighters that are going to look minus 1,000 that you're getting for minus 180. And we got Bleed the Books. Yup. Chris saying, thanks for the work and grind, and thanks for the entertaining chat. Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for hanging out. We got thanks, Uncle Weezy. I'm already thirsting for the next show. I can't say thirsting and use the show's name, but you get me. Can't wait. And yeah, definitely search YouTube for Z, for Monk, obviously for DFS by the numbers, Stat Diggers, the new DraftKings show that I'm doing with Z and DFS by the numbers and Sparring with Reality on Pub Sports Radio tomorrow night, 6 p.m. Central Time. Can't wait to do it with you guys. And do I watch PFL or Bellator? I do watch it, but I don't have any stats for it. And because I break down fights from a statistical standpoint, I don't really do any content yet on Bellator or PFL, maybe somewhere down the road. But in the meantime, I'm just concentrating on the UFC. And my man Brady saying, just got done recording my prediction vid, and you're still on. I didn't expect it to go an hour, man. But you know how it is, dude. These guys in the chat are absolutely bringing me gold. And it would be an absolute criminal enterprise for me not to be interacting with these guys and listening to everything that they're adding to this Balls Deep breakdown. I appreciate it, man. Much love to all you guys. Thanks for hanging out with me. I'm going to cut it short here, try to keep it to under an hour. That gives me a 1 minute and 9 seconds to say, God bless all you guys for hanging out on a late night Balls Deep breakdown. I hope you found this information. Oh, you know what, dude? We got to look at the lines. We have to look at the lines before we go on this fight, because it would not be a Balls Deep breakdown unless we found some opportunities here. So this will go over an hour. I lied to all of you guys. Probably won't be the last time. But Austin Hubbard and Vinc Pichel. The fight goes to decision right now, looking at minus 220, minus 240. That is a nice parlayable line, or even a 2.2 to win 1 unit bet. I really do see this fight going to decision. I love the over 2.5 even better though, because I could see maybe if Madsen's conditioning, or I'm not Madsen, if either of these guys' conditioning is a problem, there could be a finish late. But I do like this fight going all the way to decision. If we look at Pichel inside the distance plus 1100, or I'm sorry, that was by Pichel by knockout. Let's see if we can find the inside the distance lines here. Pichel wins inside the distance plus 380 and plus 480. And Hubbard wins inside the distance plus 370 and plus 355. So the books are actually giving Hubbard a little bit better of a chance to finish inside the distance. And let's see what these decision lines are. Can we find the decision lines? Shit. Pichel wins by decision plus 140 or plus 150. Hubbard wins by decision plus 195 plus 205. So especially if you're on Hubbard, there's some nice value in that decision line. And I think that there's a little more value in the decision line for Hubbard because Pichel's losses have all come inside the distance. So some people might think that Hubbard might finish this inside the distance. I don't see him finishing Vinc Pichel. This is going to be a war all the way to the bell. So yeah, I think if you're looking for a little bit of extra value, you can get those decision lines for these guys. This is looking right around a pick 'em right here, minus 110 for both fighters. Yeah, I'm going to lean Pichel. I think he's got more ways to win this fight, more ways to win minutes. However, Austin Hubbard will probably be landing the more impressive strikes. Conditioning, a slight edge for Hubbard, but Pichel has always been tough and has always shown fantastic conditioning. And especially in the Roosevelt Roberts and Jim Miller fights, those were grappling heavy fights with a lot of scrambles, a lot of reversals of positions, a lot of submission attempts, and then a lot of heavy strikes thrown when they were on the feet. Very high-paced fight. So, and Pichel never got tired. So I don't expect the conditioning of Hubbard to make a huge difference here because I don't think we're going to see Pichel get tired. The pick is Vinc Pichel. The pick is Pichel by decision. Will I get to a bet on that? Most likely not. The bet that I would most likely get to here would be putting the fight goes to decision or the over 2.5 in a parlay. Thanks for hanging out with me, you guys. I know it went a little bit late, but it was great interacting with everybody here in the chat. I always have fun doing these live Balls Deep breakdowns with you guys. Stay tuned for Just the Tip tomorrow night on my channel, late night, probably 9 o'clock Central Time is what I'm shooting for. And 6 o'clock Central Time, the new DraftKings show on Pub Sports Radio. I am signing off for the night. Thank you guys all for watching and hanging out on another episode of Balls Deep Breakdown. We will see you guys tomorrow. God bless.